victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Your mics are on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is BlackWestchester.com presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. I think we hear an echo a little bit. Let me turn it down. I think that's a little bit better. Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the show. I don't think Facebook is on just yet. Trying to see if the Facebook is on yet. Nope, not yet. I should be on by now. I don't see Facebook. Facebook, where are you? Nope, don't see it yet. So anyway, this is the People Before Politics show. This is episode 180. This is episode, I think, 187 or 188. We're coming closer and closer to the 200th episode, and we definitely have to have a special celebration. I want to first welcome everybody who just tuned in on Facebook. You are tuned in to Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. Welcome all. I am your host, A.J. Woodson. Shout out, we got people in already. Shout out to Tanya Connors and Patricia DeLuca. I always say shout out to her, too. I always say, as good as people say that I'm a great writer, or they say I'm a good writer, or I'm a decent writer, whatever they say, I have to give credit to all the editors that I've ever had. And Patricia DeLuca was the editor of King magazine.
Okay.
And when my boy took over as the head of King, she used to always call and give me assignments.
AJ, I'm going to be honest with you.
What?
I've always had a very keen interest in the editorial content of King magazine.
Yeah, but it wasn't just just the editorial that you was interested in. King magazine was the King magazine was the adult hip hop magazine. It had all the things you would find in the hip hop magazine, all the same topics, but it also had a lot of girls in bathing suits and stuff like that, and you know, so a lot of people were interested. A lot of people were interested in that. Let me bring y'all on. We have our co-host, the voice you heard, Dr. Robert Baskerville, a.k.a. Brooklyn Bob, a.k.a. Biff Baskerville in the house.
I just threw on the Biff Baskerville hat.
And we have the lovely Latina Lorraine Lopez in the place to be. Bunch of things going on. We're gonna deal with. We have a guest coming in and shortly. Charles Stern. You hear us talk about him all the time. He listens to the show. He does a little thing called Red Blue Talk. He deals with a lot of politics and stuff. And we're gonna bring him in to talk about a lot of stuff, especially what's going on at the national level, from the national level to the local level, back and forth. So we're definitely gonna do that. I wanna announce. So shout out to everybody who's already purchased a ticket for our first ever fundraiser. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Black Westchester is having a fundraiser on Thursday, and a portion of the proceeds, almost half of the proceeds, are going to the Mount Vernon Soup Kitchen. We had Jared Apuzzo on last week, who works at the soup kitchen. His mother runs the soup kitchen. He was talking about how important the soup kitchen is to the city of Mount Vernon. He told us they feed several hundred people a week, several days a week, and their funding has been cut for the last 2 years. I think their funding was cut 1 year and a half, and then I think hardly anything last year, and then nothing at all this year. Shout out to Caitlin Gleason, part of the Mount Vernon Soup Kitchen, also Mount Vernon Library trustee. Shout out to Brother Ken Bright. Also, just let me I just like shout outs to people that do think Brother Ken Bright has been doing a lot of work with educating people and fighting against recidivism and things that have to do with the criminal justice and treatment of people in prison. So definitely. And then he also does a thing where he feeds the community. He has the little thing where you go by and pick up the food.
Progressive.
Yeah, the LPS, Life So Must Be Life Progressive Services.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So shout out to him. Shout out to Mount Vernon City Court Judge Adrian Armstrong, just tuned in. While we're giving shout outs, I know I want to talk about the event we went to, Bob, but before that, Lorraine also went to an event this week. Where did you go this week?
I went to the YMCA's dinner dance and award ceremony, and I just want to say congratulations to all the honorees, which included Office of the Aging, the Yonkers Police Department, the Teachers Union, and my brother Hector Lopez, and I had a wonderful, wonderful time.
And then there was another event, and you didn't get a chance to go to that, but the Walia event.
Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement Association, which my brother runs, honored Louis Molina, who's the deputy. First
Deputy Commissioner of Westchester County Department of Corrections, Valhalla.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa Reyes, and someone else.
Shout out to Lisa Reyes from News 12.
And congratulations to her.
Okay, and don't let me forget, I was talking about the fundraiser and I stopped. Caitlin reminded me, everybody, we had the flyer going out for a while. We have a change of venue because of the increased interest in the event. We moved it to a larger venue where we'll be in Maggie Spillane's on Gramerton Avenue. So it won't be on Sanford Boulevard the way it was going to be. So we picked that. It's a larger event. So please feel free, all come through, support Black Westchester, support the Mount Vernon Soup Kitchen. You heard why it was important, and if you missed it, go back to last week's show, and you see why it's important to support the Soup Kitchen and Black Westchester. A lot of people say they support what we do. One of the ways of supporting what we do is this way, so we can continue to keep the paper free for the people, and continue doing the shows and the website and everything like that, and continue giving information to the people, and educating the people and speaking truth to power. So if you support Black Westchester, come out and support. If you support the Soup Kitchen, come out and support. Definitely worthwhile causes. Definitely worthwhile. Shout to Wanda London, who said hello, my sister. Simone Hines, Lynn Woodley, Louise Cherigo said hello. Sean Patterson Howard just tuned in. We were just talking about
congratulations on such a successful event that you had. It was. I had a great time. You did a wonderful job. Kudos
to Sean Patterson Howard and the work she does for the YMCA and the YWMCA, and all the work that she does in the city of Yonkers and has done in the city of Mount Vernon as well. Mm-hmm. So Wanda London said hello to me too. Hello, Wanda. Shout out to Tracy Cates. She said she will be tuning in today. Definitely appreciate her tuning in. Love you guys. For the people. That's what Wanda said. And Tracy said, hello, everybody.
Oh, Tracy.
Yeah. So now, Bob, before
yes.
we have Charles come in,
mm-hmm.
you and I went to an important event.
Yes.
And the event was for. You're welcome, Sean. Sean said, "Thank you, guys." The event was for the Mount Vernon Razorbacks. I'm gonna say a couple words and I'm gonna just throw it to you. I was invited to take part in it as a member of the press, and it was their 40-year anniversary gala. Bob can speak more on this, but the Mount Vernon Razorbacks have saved a lot of young men. Shout out to Dwayne Brown. I give credit where credit is due. He gave a very moving speech. Explaining that his mother had been a victim of an assault and sexual assault, and he was the production of that. You know what I'm saying? So he did not know his father, in other words, and it wasn't until the Mount Vernon Razorbacks that he actually had a father figure. And he was talking about the importance of what that did to him and what that meant to him. And I thought, that was I had never heard that story. I've known the brother for 4 years. The first time I've actually heard that story, and I was very moved by it. That's why I share it. And a lot of other people were talking about. So they honored the 3 families that started the Razorbacks, which was former Mount Vernon councilman Yana Edwards and his wife, who I met for the first time. Walked up to me. She was like, "Oh, I'm Yana." I was like, "Yo, I never had met her in person, so I was very happy to meet her." And then the Price family, right? The family was the Price. And then the third family was the Baskervilles, in Dr. Bob Baskerville's mom and dad. And
That's awesome.
Bob gave a moving speech, as only he can do. And while he won't bring it up, he, in behalf of his family donated $500 to keep the Razorbacks going, and I want to shout him out for that.
Right.
Well, we're gonna shout out Aunt. We're gonna shout out Aunt Di.
Well, Aunt Di, but yes, definitely shout out to your aunt. You know what I'm saying? But you presented it for the family.
Yes.
That's what I was saying. So, I'm I ain't gonna say nobody else presented it. I'm not gonna say that, but it was a nice gesture. I was waiting for other people, if not to match it, to be like, oh yeah, and I got a donation of, and I got it. But it was a very successful event, and and they're a very big staple of the Mount Vernon community. Now I'm gonna let Bob talk because he was a Razorback and his parents did start it, so he can speak a lot more on the situation.
Well, it was an honor to attend this week's 40th anniversary gala celebration of the founding of the Mount Vernon Razorbacks. As you already indicated, the honorees of the gala were the three founding families.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a sociology class.
Founding fathers.
Yeah.
Founding fathers.
And it was a wonderful. It was well attended. Probably 100 or more people, at least, and including most of our elected officials, both from the city of Mount Vernon and
City Council, the Mount Vernon mayor, and county legislator Lyndon Williams, who's the county legislator over Mount Vernon.
Right, and so I think one of the things that everyone is hoping is that this signals financial support in the days ahead as the Razorbacks seek to raise funds.
That was a point that was brought up too. I see y'all all here, y'all all speaking. It'd be nice if we can continue this on to the community and get the community together.
And listen, man, all I can say is that I felt very fortunate as I've looked back retrospectively on my experiences as a young man, a young boy essentially in the city of Mount Vernon, to have had the Razorbacks. I mean, we had a lot of wonderful memories. You see, AJ, I was getting love from my peeps.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
When Bob went up, they was like, Brooke.
Yeah, original.
Bob was a celebrity. I was the sidekick. Like it was like, oh, that's Bob's man. What's his name? Yeah. Shout out to Delia Farquharson, the elected official, city council, one of the city council members that was there. Delia Farquharson, she's listening. Janice Duarte. And Councilman Andre Wallace is there again. Mount Vernon Mayor Richard Thomas was there, who is a former Razorback, and Lyndon Williams, and
they were also joined belatedly by
the council president Lisa Copeland. And we're talking about elected officials, and I know some people stop there, but shout to I think she's the Board of Ed president, Wanda White, who was very active in the Razorbacks as well.
Yes, I remember.
And shout out,
that
and,
was,
and I want to give a shout out to Andrea Ayers,
yes,
who was actually the first female coach, I believe they said, something like that. So
right.
that was that was huge. So I want to give her props.
Definitely, and I wanted to take the moment also to highlight the importance of the contributions that many people made to Mount Vernon Razorbacks, but especially a lot of the younger women of my generation, because Andrea, she was about 17, 18. We're about the same age, and she was serving as a coach.
Right.
While I was on the team.
And I was surprised to hear that, too, because I was like, she's not much older than us.
Yeah, there were several women who had assumed adult responsibilities as mid-level managers and coaches on the team at an age much younger than you would expect, and I hope that they serve as an example to others who are coming up in their footsteps, because we do need to replenish a lot of the elders who are now starting to retire from some of the civic organizations that they helped to found and to lead all of these years.
And can I just add, so, and I want to say this, not Bob, but I mean, he spoke on it and Dwayne spoke on it as well. I always say, they say now, you hear people our age talk about the youth are out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us, like me, I always say, if it wasn't for those older than me, that looked out for me, that saw something in me, I'd be dead in jail like a lot of my peers.
Right.
But I was not, because I was, some people saw something in me. And it's that important, especially with groups of Razorbacks, to keep that organization going, for some of those who have come through it to now give back. And for our generation, even if you don't have a kid in the Razorbacks, to support the Razorbacks. You know what I'm saying? And whether it's financially, whether it's through your volunteer, whatever level it is, because this organization, and Bob made a compelling speech, having lost, like Lorraine, share something in common, both lost two brothers to the streets, and you made the comment that without the Razorbacks, there would have been a lot more people like your
Absolutely.
brother, and there was a lot of people saved not to go that, from that fate, you know what I'm saying, because of the Razorback. So right now, I'm just saying everybody needs to give back, and give back any way you can. Shout out to Chris Breezy, shout out to Wilfred Dennis, shout out to Tawana Ballinger, shout out to the Future Society. Another organization does a lot of good stuff for the youth of Mount Vernon, take them on fishing trips and stuff like that. Larry Fair and his wife. Shout out to Uncle Frank, who does a lot, and I will keep giving him props, because a lot of people don't, for building and taking and donating the permanent bench in the memory of Shamoya, the young girl that was killed New Year's Eve by a hail of bullets. Shout out to Omi Medina. Shout out to Paul Anthony. What's that? There you go. She always says it better than me. And Michael Williams. With that, you can continue talking about the Razorbacks if you want. I want to ask our guest, Charles Stern, to step in, though. But keep going. I caught you when you was mid sip. There you go.
I got to get ready for Charles.
Yes.
You could sit either place that you prefer, Charles.
Okay, great. Where are you most comfortable?
Okay, thank you.
Somewhat counterintuitively, the closer you are to the AC, the warmer you'll be. If it goes on, it's going to shoot over your head.
You're going to put it on, AJ?
Well, you're a little taller than me, so maybe not.
Well, let me start off this. Since this is your first time here, let's make sure we give you official People Before Politics welcome.
All right. Good to have you.
Thank you, AJ.
And just take your mic, pull it to you, and talk into it.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
If you want, you can pull it closer.
Yeah, you can relax. The mic moves. It can. Yeah.
There you go. You can sit back with it.
Deluxe. I'm used to a home studio setup, so this is really
so.
And you can turn on your Facebook too if
you
want.
Anything you want to do in your
Okay.
social media, you sign in. And all that.
This
is
deluxe.
very yes.
This is really
So
something.
Bob, I know you're finishing up the Razorbacks. Continue. I interrupted you when you.
So it was a wonderful occasion to be back and meet, see friends and former coaches, and I urge everyone to become more involved in the future, in the Razorbacks, and if not the Razorbacks, some of the other organizations that we've highlighted.
YCOP was there.
YCOP.
It was good to see them there.
And others. I also mentioned that we attended the 3rd anniversary celebration of the opening of Cupcake Cutie.
Oh, that was this week as well. Yes.
Yes.
Shout out,
okay.
3 years.
Congratulations
It's
to
3
them.
years to the opening of the store. The store has been there for 3 years now.
Great local business.
Yes.
And while we were there, I happened to meet some former alums at Sacred Heart.
Oh yeah, Bob was a star all week.
Yeah.
Wow, he's a
When we walked up to him,
superstar.
when we walked up, was like, "Is you at Baskerville? Robert's Baskerville? I think we went to Sacred Heart together." Like, and I was like, and then another person she was with, she stopped them, and told them to come get out the car so she could talk to Bob too. The people that they went to school with. In
Yes,
what, 6th grade or something like that or something?
Yes.
Yeah, they remember him.
It's a long time ago we're talking now. But amongst other things, while we in catching up, she mentioned to me that she was a member of a Boy Scouts troop.
Right, and out of Grace Baptist.
And
Yeah, that was very sad.
and she was telling us, well, she had mentioned to us that they were in need of more male.
It's the Boy Scouts, and they have mostly women leaders.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
They don't have enough men volunteers. That's
Right.
no need to play around with it.
Right.
The men need to step up because we need some men. And she made an example. They have one man that's involved, but when he's not there, every now and then they might want to test the
Right.
women. They want to, they might not want to
Give them a little more guff.
They not toe the line as much when, with the women they might try
Where
to.
do they meet? Where do they meet?
Grace Baptist Church.
Grace
Oh,
Baptist,
great.
yeah.
Okay.
I heard there is another one that maybe in Centennial
Can I-
might have a troop too.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now this is a stupid question, but Razorbacks is a football team?
The Razorbacks is the youth
Yes.
football league of Mount Vernon has a team. I don't know do they play other Razorback teams or they just play other teams.
Is it a
The
Mount
ti-
Vernon
it's the
team
team-
or is it a school team?
It's a Mount Vernon youth. Like in Long Island, if
It's
I
not
was
a school
the
team.
right, if I
Not
if I
school team.
if I was here at that age, when I was in Long Island, I played in the PAL, the
Yeah.
Police Athletic League. There's probably the same age group. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind
Oh,
of a
okay.
league. The Mount Vernon team is the Razorbacks because one of the things they were saying is people who wanted their kids wanted to play football had to go to like New Rochelle or somewhere. Like
Right.
there was no team in Mount Vernon,
So
which is
who do
why
they play against?
Well, it's part of a league that plays against other teams, both in Westchester County. So the regular competitors are other teams that are in some of our sister cities here in Westchester County.
Oh, okay.
But eventually, they will play in state, regional, and maybe even national bowl games, depending on their record and how effective, how successful they
a
are.
couple
So they're
years
gonna
ago,
end up playing against the Yonkers team because they just started the Braves and the Force.
but that's older though, right? That's
They
not
just
youth.
started. They
Is
had
that
their
for the
first
youth
game
or
on
that's-
Friday.
That's
That's for high school kids.
okay. This is younger.
So the
Oh,
Razorbacks
little
starts
one.
from about 5, 6 now.
Right.
Maybe Pee-wees, junior Pee-wees, on up until when, it was testing my memory, it would have been like the midgets or something, which would have been the...
That's why I compared it to and
the
what we had the
senior mostly,
PAL because the PAL is usually around the same. In other cities, they have PALs. For other
Yeah, you
people
sort of
listening.
age out by 8th grade, Lorraine, and then if people are interested in continuing on the football squad or the cheerleading squad, they usually try out for Mount Vernon Knights.
Got it.
The
All
only thing I
right.
can
And,
add is that Razorbacks is like a legendary Mount Vernon thing. Like every kid that grew up in Mount Vernon came through it. And has strong
Aw.
feelings about it. It's a whole thing. It's a local treasure.
You know,
I
they were
heard a lot
considering. I
about
want you
it,
to
and
know
I-
this, AJ. I didn't tell you this, man. They were considering retiring my jersey. That's how much of a impression.
Really, really?
Yeah. Well, let me read a comment real quick and go back to that. Sean Patterson Howard said, "It's not too late to give a donation to the Razorbacks, to YCOP, to the YMCA, to the Soup Kitchen, to the Boys Club, and to Black Westchester." Thank you for that. He said, "Don't wait for a gala. They all need help year round."
True that, yeah.
And I applaud you for that comment. Louise said in Westchester it was Pop Warner. That's another youth league. Pop Warner is in other cities.
Mount Vernon Razorbacks originally were part of the Pop Warner Football League.
Okay.
There are other alternative leagues as well. I'm not sure if the Razorbacks continue to be a part of Pop Warner or if they transfer to another league. But they play some local teams
There's some fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of things went on last week. So just like the last week was a busy week.
Oh wait, can I give a shout out to Jenny Rose
Absolutely.
from Bios and formerly from
okay.
News 12? That's my girl. She said a lot of wonderful things about me at the Walia event, and I just wanted. She said to say hi to me too, and I just want to say hi.
Alrighty then.
Thank you.
Hi, Jenny. And shout out again to Lisa Reyes, who got honored at that event.
That's right. Yes.
A friend of Black Westchester. She's very supportive of Black Westchester. So, shout out to Ty. Ty is too of News 12. So, and I want to leave Ty out. Like, yo, what about me? Nah. So, wow. Louise said, I remember playing Mount Vernon. I was a cheerleader. Okay.
Okay.
Congratulations.
It's been a long time for the both of us, Louis.
Yeah, so all the things that was going on. And then this week is, from this time to the end of the year, it just gets busier and busier. As I said, we're having the Black Westchester fundraiser, where proceeds go to the Soup Kitchen Thursday. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to keep saying that so everybody hears me.
Yes, throughout the show.
Throughout the show. At Maggie Spillane, the location has been moved to Maggie Spillane on Gramerton. So.
Also, Andre Wallace has an event coming up on Friday.
Oh, a birthday party fundraiser type thing. Yes, Andre's birthday is actually on Saturday, but he's having his birthday celebration fundraiser on Friday. And since we're doing birthday shouts, and I know she's not listening, shout out to my daughter whose birthday is next Sunday. So.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yes, where I will be in the ATL with her next Sunday.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah,
It's already upon us.
Yeah. So shout out to her. So.
Hello.
Oh my God! And shout out
okay.
to our lovely co-host, Lorraine Lopez, whose birthday is also Friday.
Oh, happy birthday,
Okay.
Lorraine.
So early happy birthday.
So the
you.
birthdays is Lorraine.
Can you forget?
Lorraine.
Shame on you.
I said it last week.
As a matter of fact, I know you said it last week because if you look at the clip that I put in one of the things that I did earlier
That's
in the
the
week,
clip that
I
says.
just grabbed like 5 seconds of the show, and it happened to be the 5 seconds where you were wishing Lorraine a happy birthday.
That's right, and I saw it.
There you go, man. We love Charles now.
So it's Lorraine on Friday, Lorraine on Friday, Andre on Saturday, and my daughter on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and
So we've got a lot to celebrate.
And
this
shout out to Nakaya Cates, Tracy's daughter, is this Tuesday. So shout out to her birthday.
And that's the case. Don't forget Susie, who's also on Sunday.
Oh, happy birthday, Susie. How you doing?
Susie's my sister.
And Sean Patterson Ellis said happy birthday, blessings.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and Louise was agreeing with you. She said many moons. Go ahead, Charles.
And AJ, you got Thea Blessed tuned in here. She's a librarian at the Mount Vernon Public Library.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. If you see a name that I didn't say, please feel free to mention it, because I miss names all the time. I think that's everybody that I got. So Charles, moving along, I want to introduce you. Now I know you from Mount Vernon, from being around. I know you from being involved in Amani schools. That's where I know you mostly.
Right.
And you do this kind of video blog or whatever I don't know how you call it, called Red Blue Talk. And I've used several of your videos on blackwestchester.com,
And
like
I
dealing with
appreciate
dealing with the sewer system, and we talk about a lot of things. So I just wanted you to come on and we could discuss politics and local and national, and give you a chance to, the people to hear from you. I use your video, let the people hear from you directly.
Well, thank you, first of all, for using the video, and thank you for having me on the program. And I want to first of all, before I say anything else, bring a verbal bouquet to the People Before Politics program, because I admire what you're doing here tremendously. But
Thank
let me
you.
tell you specifically why. Anybody, regardless of whatever your political orientation is, would agree there's not enough local news in the world, right? And certainly not in Westchester, and certainly not in Mount Vernon and in these other places. There's just a terrible, terrible shortage. And you are stepping in Lorraine, Dr. Bob, Damon. You stepped in and you've helped to fill that gap, and you figured out a way to put a business model around it. I hope that, that's successful, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Absolutely.
For a
Thank you.
variety of reasons. It's a complicated thing to do, technically complicated. There's just a lot involved. But it's just so necessary because there's not enough information going on about what's happening in these local communities. You are interviewing people who are running for office. Some of them are famous. Some of them want to be famous. You've got people on from all different corners of the spectrum, and I just think it's fascinating, and it's informative, and it's helping to fill a gap. So thank you very much for doing that, and whatever I can do to help support that, I would like to help support.
Well, thank you for your kind words.
you.
Thank you for your
Thank
kind
you.
words.
Very
We
nice.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you do. So
Oh, thank you.
I want you to talk about some of the things you do, so people, our audience, will know what it is you do.
Sure. So you mentioned Red Blue Talk. So Red Blue Talk, I just call it an internet channel, for lack of a better
Okay.
term. It's like a vlog in some ways. I shoot videos where I talk about topics that relate to how government and politics impact people's lives. And that could mean national issues in some cases, but in a lot of times I'm covering local stories. I grew up in New Rochelle. I lived in Mount Vernon for about 10 years. Now I live in Pelham.
Okay.
So this area is home to me. And there just isn't enough local news. There's not enough coverage of things that are going on. And we need more opportunities for people to talk about things that are going on. And so I make a living doing something else completely, but this is something that I am also working on. And if I'm fortunate like you to figure out a way to wrap a business model around it, maybe I could do it some more. But if you look at I've done over 100 videos now. Some of them are about things like you mentioned the one where I was talking to the city council members and the mayor about the water situation in Mount Vernon. I've done videos that relate to Donald Trump. I've done videos that relate to security online and Facebook. So I'm kind of all over the map. And maybe I need to focus that a little bit. But clearly the area where I've been able to do the best audience development has been around the local stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people want to hear about, and I think that's where the gap is, and that's where if you can put a microphone in front of somebody, do an interview, put 5 slides on the screen that explain something in greater detail.
And I like that you do that, because as you're talking, you put a presentation together, and we see what you're talking about. We see.
Yeah, lately
the
I've been
grass.
doing that more, and I think that's a good vehicle because, for a couple of reasons. One, it allows you to go into a little bit more depth. It keeps it very focused. And if it's just me talking and moving my hands, it's not enough. It's not interesting enough. I don't get the audience retention if I do that.
We have a low attention span audience.
Me too, by the way.
Yeah.
So I got the same problem. And so the solution, and I found it to be pretty effective. I did a video a few weeks ago about Alessandra Biaggi, who won her primary
We
against
posted
Jeff
that,
Klein.
yes. 7 reasons why Alessandra won.
Yep,
yeah.
7
Oh,
reasons
I
why.
read
Right.
that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I got a lot of feedback, and that was one of my most watched videos of all time. And I think it's because I kind of chunked it down into specific things, talked each one about 30, 40 seconds, and then moved on to the next one, and it just keeps it interesting.
Well, I want to stop you there. So what I appreciated most about that, if I'm not mistaken, she's not the candidate that you were supporting, that you were.
So
I got the impression you were.
Fair to say.
Yeah.
Fair to say. I have been a Klein supporter for a while.
Right.
I like Jeff Klein, and among other reasons, Jeff Klein has been very supportive of charter schools.
Okay.
And as I didn't really fully flesh out my backstory, but my wife and I founded the Imani Public Charter School, which is located in Mount Vernon, New York. So I consider myself a pro-charter school person, and I don't work there. I don't run the school. My wife runs the joint. But I have certainly a commitment to the place, and I was very involved with the founding of the school. So yes, I was Klein supporter, but nevertheless, it was a story. I mean, there's really something going on. There's Indivisible is a very active organization in Westchester, and they're well organized, and they're, politically super active right now. And what happened on that primary was a major story. Now, there was, in fairness, a fair amount of newspaper coverage, but I think I was able to kind of address it from a different perspective. And
the reason I say that is because a lot of things. First off, a comment to you. Mount Vernon City Court Judge Adrian Armstrong said, "Good evening. Good hearing and seeing my former colleague Charles Stern on the Mount Vernon School Board, who remains committed to positive change." So,
Well, thank you, Adrian, for the kind words and for reminding me that I served on the Mount Vernon School Board for 5 years. There are days I try to forget that episode of my life.
Aww.
But nevertheless, yes, it was time.
but going back to why I said what I said was, we're seeing, especially on the national level, but even on the local level, this tribalism, like whether it's party affiliated, and especially on the local level, if I support this person and you support this person and they're opposing persons, it's almost, and they hate when I say it, it's almost a blood and crip mentality, especially in the city of Mount Vernon. I see it a little bit in Yonkers and other cities as well. But, since we all, have something to do with Mount Vernon, I see it especially in Mount Vernon. So I appreciate from somebody who does news to, even if that's not the person you supported, you still did that video. And you didn't do it in a way that was like, there are other people that supported him, and their coverage of her wasn't the most favorable. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
And they tried to throw under the bus because of who her grandfather was and all that stuff. But you did a
Right.
positive piece,
Right.
Well, regardless.
AJ, the name of of my internet channel is Red Blue Talk, right?
Mhm.
And I chose that name deliberately because it's possible to discuss a topic from more than one perspective.
Absolutely.
And it's also possible to say, hey, this is not my opinion, but this is what's out there.
Right.
A few days ago, and this is a little even more out there, but a few days ago, I did a live stream where I was commenting on a Trump rally. So he did like 4 rallies this week.
Yes,
Absolutely.
he did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so there was this rally in, I think it was Erie, Pennsylvania. And I played it back, which, by the way, Fox is not playing back his rallies anymore. They stopped
Why?
doing it. I don't know if they weren't getting the ratings or maybe something changed, but Fox is not covering those rallies anymore. But
A lot of
there's-
people go to his rallies.
Oh, they're packed.
They're
They were
packed.
packed all week. He had 7,500 people. He had one in, I want to say, so one was in Erie, Pennsylvania. I think on Saturday he had one in Kentucky. The 3 that I saw had about 8,000 people.
Packed.
And there were no open seats. There were people just like standing shoulder to shoulder in the center, and then all the seats were filled.
Yeah.
The point of the story is I did this live stream, and it's just me kind of live commenting on the Trump rally. Now, I'm not a Trump follower, definitely not. It's not my scene. But you watch this thing, and you see, like, what is this message? Why are these people so connected to this?
Mm-hmm.
What? And is there something to be learned from that, even if it's not your opinion? That's just kind of how I look at it. So that's the big idea of Red Blue Talk, and I'm going to try to do some more of that stuff.
Now, I heard, and again, I'm very careful about rumors and facts, but I heard, and I don't remember what I was watching, that a lot of people are paid to go.
Not 8,000 people.
No,
Not
but
even
I
1,000
don't know.
people
I
can
don't
afford
know
to
that.
pay.
I don't know this to be.
Well,
but I'm saying that. But this
yeah.
has been said more than once by various people.
Right.
That there are people that have gone because they were paid, and I have no way of proving that or dispelling that. So.
Well, let me.
And somebody
say
said he
this,
chooses
AJ.
chooses small venues to pack them
It
because he
doesn't-
also
that's not
no.
necessarily true, because 8,000 people.
No, but
it's
he-
still 8,000 people,
well,
whether
but
it's a
he
small
what
or a
he
big venue.
what he said he was going to do when he went to Texas, he said he's going to find the biggest place that he can find, and the biggest places is like Dallas Stadium
Could be
and the
tremendous.
College
Yeah.
Stadium. He's not doing anywhere near those kind of numbers. Those are like
Right.
they're 10 times that amount. The venues.
Right.
So that's what she's saying. That now he's picking small venues. Because he was saying, I'm going to get the biggest place, because they called him out on that, what the biggest places were in Texas.
Well, it's certainly
he
better.
would-
It's
yeah.
better to have a small place packed.
I mean,
than a
that's
big place
that's,
half
that's
empty.
just common.
Yeah.
That's common sense. Period.
Right.
That's not. That's nothing I can say bad about Trump. That's common sense.
Right.
Hi, Donna. Sorry.
I want to say that for me, the most significant thing about President Trump's decision to hold this almost unbroken series of mass rallies between elections is the way that it, in some respects, parallels the kind of mass politics that we found being used by many fascist totalitarian leaders during the period of totalitarianism.
Now you know. I'm going to stop you and have you explain what fascist totalitarianism is.
So
for the lay person that has no idea what the hell
basically
Like
by,
moi.
Yeah, I
by,
can use the primer.
by fascism and totalitarianism, we refer to conservative movements that arose in Europe during the 20th century, headed above all else by Hitler, the Nazi regime, Mussolini, the Italian fascists, and the supporters of the emperor. I guess it would have been, is it Hirohito who was the emperor of Japan during World War II? But in any case, back to my original point, Hitler especially and his minions are infamous for the use of these kind of stage mass rallies that really look to capitalize on the emerging forms of television and radio during the period of the Great Depression. And in some respects, it seems to me that Donald Trump is similarly trying to perhaps neutralize the criticism and even counterattack that is likely to experience because of all of the investigations that have been going on since he entered office, and as a way of trying to stave off the possibility that he might be impeached. So it's a very, I think it's extremely dangerous. Usually one of the hallmarks of American politics, especially presidential politics, has been the suspension of the campaign once the election is over and the transition to governance. And we see a refusal on the part of the president to make this kind of transition. And so he really is in a, it's perpetual politics, perpetual election.
And dare I say, it mirrors Mount Vernon.
Because it didn't convert over to governance.
Right.
I understand that part. So
Yeah.
one thought I had about that, what you raised, AJ, about are they paying people to show up at these things? I mean, I've heard these same things. I don't know. I mean, once you get a very, very large audience, you get into the thousands. How many people can you pay?
I know.
But I will say this: Fox stopped covering.
Now that's
those
the most
rallies.
interesting that you said.
But hear me out. Listen. So there's this independent broadcasting group called Right Side Broadcasting. It's RSBC or something like that. You can look them up, Right Side Broadcasting, and they are live streaming this thing on YouTube. And the production values are beautiful. It looks like CBS. They've got 3 young people that serve as anchors. They got 2 camera people. They got 2 cameras. One camera's outside, one camera's inside, aimed at the stage. And it's like you're watching Fox, but it's these 4 independent people. Now, I don't know, those guys could be paid.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're getting subsidized to do what Fox was doing previously. I could see that.
Right.
You know, but I will say this: I watched the other night. You can watch the playback if you want. It's all over YouTube. The commentators that they have are they're pretty good. They're these young people, young women, young men.
With the new station.
With this new independent
whatever
station, but they sound like how can I explain this? They bring a certain energy to it. They bring an excitement to it. I don't even think CNN has. I mean, to your point, it's like an indoctrination thing. It's almost like they created like a little cult around Donald Trump, and it's kind of effective. So you kind of have to look at that and wonder, is this going to pick up steam? I think what you said, Dr. Bob, is spot on, which is he's trying to do what he can before he faces the eventuality of impeachment, because all the signs, all the polling point to a midterm, like they're talking about 200. I think they require 216 seats. How many people are in Congress? There's 435 members, so you need 217, or you need 218 in order to have a majority. They think that the number is going to be way above that, and it's very likely he could get impeached. So I think he's probably doing what he can to stave that off.
Right.
Well, I want to add something to that. I agree with all that. Shout to Don Starchild Moore. I agree, and Kevin Bunch. I agree with that, and I want to say that, and I'm going to continue to say this until Election Day, that it is very important that Democrats do not take this for granted. I believe a lot of times they take the black and the brown vote for granted because of Trump. A lot of people just feel that it's automatically going to be a blue wave. There are forces that are trying hard and spending a lot of money to prevent that, and they are fighting by any means necessary some of the things you just named. And the Democrats are going to, they can't just do, oh, Trump's bad because of this, and we got to get Trump bad, because they're going to have to deal with the local issues in their area. You understand what I'm saying? And stick to, I mean, of course people talk about Trump, but that's not what a lot of people are concerned about in their immediate area, which you're going to govern over. You have to speak to those situations, whether it's unemployment, whether it's criminal justice, whatever it is, you know. You have to concentrate, and if they concentrate, the ones that I see that have been concentrating on just the issues, they're building up a lot of momentum, and you're just going to have to continue to go all out to the end. Like, you know, you ever see like a sports game, and you know one team is just up by a lot, and then they just like chill for a minute, like, and they almost celebrate early, and then the other team creeps up and wins. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to have to, until the time, as long as there's time on the clock,
keep the pressure on.
They're going to have to continue full force. If they do that, they may have a good chance of doing what is predicted. Yeah. But I warn everybody, because in the 2016, the prediction by anybody's 9 out of 10 things that I've seen from everything that was supposed to be credible had Hillary as our next president. And as we see, that did not happen. And the next day, they were like, "Oh my God, they didn't know what the heck to do," because all the experts called that Hillary had this. I believe Hillary thought she had this. I think everybody around it believes she had it, and they kept fighting. And I guess they took their eye off the ball. And I'm saying, if you don't want that to be a repeat in 2018, you got to play as long as there's, you know, all the way to the end. And that's my, you know, warning, and that's my concern. You know, just looking at the broader picture, that there won't be a change because they're going to take it for granted, and they're going to fight and keep things straight in if they don't, you know, go all out. So,
no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that everybody's got to keep the pressure on right to the bitter end, or else you can take your eye off something. I would say that I was fooled like everybody else in 2016, but there was one guy who, David Axelrod, who was a former advisor to President Obama.
Right. Yeah.
I remember watching like about 5 days before the election in November 2016, and he said, well, everything points to Hillary Clinton. And he said this, and it seared into my brain. He said, except for what happened in Brexit, that still bothers me and makes me wonder what could happen. And he just left that little bit of uncertainty, and that turned out to be the problem. And it was an absolutely good prediction of what happened. The same wave of conservatism that swept Europe was happening here.
Right.
Which gives me an opportunity to piggyback on what Charles is saying and remind everyone that what we're seeing right now, this sort of shift towards conservatism, is not unique to the United States, and it's not a shift towards mainstream conservatism, but a kind of right-wing radical conservatism that many fear threatens to undermine our democratic institutions as a whole. And in that sense, the concern really does, at this point, transcend party loyalty, party affiliation. There have been many Republican commentators who have never Trumpers, so to speak, figures like Steve Schmidt, Max Boot, who's a very well-known writer associated with Foreign Policy magazine, who have all called for Republicans even to abandon their traditional support for the party this year in order to send a clear message to national level.
I actually saw a couple of top-notch Republicans that actually I was surprised to hear it come out of their mouths.
Right. It's George Will, I think, issued a similar, very famous conservative columnist and commentator, has issued a similar call. And the reason why I say this is because I want everyone in our audience to know that the concerns that we have with respect to the Trump administration really do go beyond just merely normal policy differences with respect to how you manage the economy, but whether or not Donald Trump's behavior is so antithetical to our democratic values that everything could break.
Now, what was funny when you said Fox wasn't covering it, and one of the other things that dawned on me, there's going to be a point in time, there could be a point in time where Trump outlives his usefulness. They needed someone who was going to get Kavanaugh or someone like Kavanaugh in. That was their only thing that they cared about. They didn't care if it meant them they losing the House. Well, Trump fought for that, and he's in now. You understand what I'm saying? But there was a lot of people that, from what I'm hearing from the experts, Republicans that do not feel some of the things that he's doing. But it was important to get Kavanaugh in. Now he's in. Mm-hmm. Now they still going to, you know what I'm saying, loyally look like they're following him. Is what is my question.
I got to follow on to that one. They don't need him because he's already stacked the federal bench with
right.
How many judges? Like 30,
two. Was it two?
30, two Supreme Court judges.
And then Kavanaugh's former position.
Down,
right.
like, there's like 30 of them.
Yeah.
Right? So he's...
And we hope that
court packing,
the
check,
notorious
right?
RBG, we hope she outlives his, so, you know.
So he's been successful at court packing, right? So that checkbox is checked, right? The other one is if the economy doesn't hold up, what's he doing?
Right.
Like, I think that could be the thing that really everything collapses. If, we had a pretty bad stock market week last week.
Yeah.
Yes,
what do you think is going to happen?
Well,
nothing if it bounces back.
I think the political implications could be significant because if I've always felt like the insanity of Donald Trump taking over the Republican Party, everybody going along with that program would collapse if the economy wasn't doing well. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, people are kind of holding their noses right now because they're seeing their 401k plans.
And that's their go-to.
Okay,
whenever you complain about all he's doing wrong, they be like, but do you see the stock market?
Right,
the stock market is, like, that's their go-to.
Right, and the GDP is 4% growth and blah, blah, blah. But if that cools off, then I don't see how then all the stuff that we don't like will be like indefensible by anybody. I think that could be the thing.
Also, he keeps touting the unemployment numbers, and I still, while there is no other way of measuring it, it measures the people that are on unemployment. At some point, there's a lot of people whose unemployment that ran out that are still unemployed. You know what I'm saying? But they're not counted.
Yeah.
They're not counted in that number of unemployed.
Right. It also counts people who are employed but don't have enough work. So if you're working 25 hours a week, you might be considered employed, but you can't make ends meet.
Right. Underemployed. Right. So
I mean, the majority of poor Americans are working poor people.
Well, and then that's what we had Laura Case on. I keep talking about that, where she introduced us to the concept of the working homeless. That it was something that I really didn't know existed that much, and she talked about how big it is. And I've always talked about, when I lived in Atlanta, the two biggest employers in Metro Atlanta were the McDonald's Corporation and Walmart. And over 60% of their employees are on some kind of assistance, whether it's food stamps or rent assistance or some kind of something, including some managers. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are some of the biggest employers, and they're not making enough. They're not paying their employees enough to live.
Right, and so there's another argument that goes along with it, which is that if you're working at Walmart or Amazon or wherever you're working, and you're also receiving some type of public assistance, it's like the public is kind of subsidizing that corporation.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's not right, and that's why Bernie Sanders was talking about this in the context of Amazon recently. And then if you notice, there was a big story maybe 2 weeks ago. Amazon raised its minimum wage to
like
$15, right, which impacted a couple 100,000 people. It was like not a small thing. But the problem with what they were doing was, this is like super powerful, super wealthy corporation, booming, $200 billion a year company. And they got hundreds of thousands of people making less than $15 an hour. And so a lot of these people either have two jobs or a job plus some type of assistance. Well, that's like the public subsidizing Amazon.com. Ridiculous.
And you got places like Atlanta, the cost of living is considerably lower than what it is in New York. And you can't live off that there. You know what I mean? So
I want to go back to the issue that you raised, though, about President Trump perhaps soon outliving his usefulness to the Republican Party. And although that seems to be the consolation that many commentators have taken since Trump's unlikely election victory, those who have looked at the historical examples have parallels to Donald Trump's rise and the rise of previous autocratic leaders have pointed out that very often they gain enough power and enough popular support through the mass spectacles, the rallies, that soon they become uncontrollable.
Well,
And that is a
thing.
very serious concern that we should have. And I also want to note that the president's administration has already begun to set the tone, not only for domestic relations, but for international relations as well. And it's arguable that the apparent death of Saudi columnist, Washington Post columnist Khashoggi is a direct result of the kind of permissive tone for anti-democratic policies that the president has set for not only the domestic United States, but all across the world. And we're likely to see a kind of ratcheting up of these right-wing tactics.
Oh, and when you make the media out to be the enemy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
It's a terrible
the
thing.
enemy. You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah, that Khashoggi thing is gruesome.
Right.
And there's a guy, he goes into an embassy, they cut his head off with a bone saw. He captures it on his Apple iWatch, we think, we're
Right.
told. Even if that's not exactly what happened, I bet they know exactly what happened. You know, it's not like it happened in a back alley. That was
Right.
inside a well-protected, organized building. Somebody knows.
And to his credit, well, I don't know why he went in there, but he knew to do whatever that was with the iWatch, the whole thing.
He went
to
to
make
get some
sure.
paperwork because he was going to get married.
Yeah, but he knew to set his, what you just said, the thing with the iWatch, so that it could stream and go straight to the cloud or whatever that process was.
It streamed to his fiance's cell phone.
That's right.
Okay.
The story we're hearing is that he had it set, as you just said, Lorraine, to stream to his fiance's phone. She was sitting in a vehicle outside the building. I'm not clear that Bluetooth distances would permit that to actually work, but
It has to, but it still goes to the cloud somewhere.
But it could still go to the cloud if he's got 4G service or some type of service turned on there. I don't really know that much about iWatches. I don't have one, but
Me either.
maybe it was recorded on the watch. I don't know. But more likely, there's got to be cameras inside that building. It's an embassy.
Where's his body?
I don't know.
Apparently, it was secreted out of the embassy either before he was killed or after. It's not really clear. We have a very sketchy picture thus far, but I mean, the speculation is that he is dead now, that he was killed.
How this connects back to the president, he's going to have to take some kind of action this week.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or he's
Absolutely.
going to find himself in a very difficult spot, and it will definitely touch the election regardless.
Well, he said he was gonna somehow take some type of action, but he wasn't gonna cut the $1 billion deals. I think it was a lot of $1 billion deal with arms that he has with them, and also there was a conference that's going on.
He said
The
he's
United
cut.
States
He's
is
not going to cut the.
He's
arm.
not gonna cut.
Yeah, because
that.
that's too much money. He's not going to do that. It would hurt our pocket if we do
But
that.
there are sanctions that he can put in place.
I just wondered, Tracy Kate, she says she does have an iWatch, and she said it feeds to the phone.
So that it records on the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
I see. Okay.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah.
So what do Turkish people have to do with this?
So this was it in Turkey?
Yes, it
It was
occurred.
the-
It
it was the-
occurred
it
in
was the-
Turkey at the
yeah, it was the
embassy,
embassy.
the Saudi embassy
in Turkey, right.
Correct.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
Right. And the Saudis and the Turkey and the Turkish government has had a long-standing conflict. To Dr. Bob's point about the Republican Party, I wonder if the Republican Party can be repaired after Donald Trump. And here's why I think they may have a problem over there, because
I think they're just trying to blow up government. I don't think they want to repair anything.
but you know, you have all these people who they drank the Kool-Aid. They jumped on board with Trump. Now how do they go back?
Well, even the guy, who's the person who that was running against Trump? Now he needs Trump's help now.
Ted Cruz.
Yes. Like, that's not all the things he said about Trump and Trump said about him. Now we're supposed to believe that he believes in him. And
it's empty. And same thing for the guy who spoke out during the confirmation hearings, Lindsey Graham.
Yes.
Right. These guys, they've drank the Kool-Aid. They're Trump people now, and I don't see how they reverse that. And the Trump mentality having taken over the Republican Party, that the party is now the party of what happened with the retaining those children
Absolutely.
on the Mexico border. The
Absolutely.
party owns that tragedy, right? And I don't see how you ever back up off of it. Unless a new Republican Party forms and with a whole bunch of new people.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's how come I have not switched.
Lorraine is our resident Republican, if you didn't know. That's
I have not switched my party because I'm praying that new millennials, Generation X's, and the Republicans that we have now in Congress are really old. Really old. So eventually they're going to die, retire, or there's going to be some type of turnover. And the younger ones, like Cruz, I think are just going to be voted out. And then I hope that there's a new emergence of moderate Republicans that comes on board and things start to change.
I want to change the subject. I want to go on to something different. I wanted to know your choices. Your comments on. There was the race that's going on in Georgia. Stacey Abrams could be the first African American governor of that state, not the country, but the state.
First African American female governor.
Oh, right.
I believe so.
She would be the first.
Okay.
Yes.
So her opponent, and what I found very interesting, he is right now the Secretary of the State, and he is the one putting these policies in that are what do they call it? Voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
And he controls whatever the board of election. And how can you? First off, you're running for a statewide office, but you control the board of elections that's governing this election. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
It doesn't sound good. It's very hard to tell from a distance. I've read a couple of newspaper articles. It's hard to tell from a distance exactly what's going on, but what it sure looks like is the Secretary of State is running for governor. He controls the election process because that's one of the things in his portfolio. And there's 50,000 new voter applications.
53,000, over 53,000.
Majority of them are African American.
I think 70%
right?
African American.
And he's trying to invalidate as many of them as he possibly can to keep the odds in his favor. That's certainly what it looks like.
And what they're doing is the craziest thing, Bob. I don't know if you've been paying attention. So, Lorraine, you registered to vote, right? And say you're Lorraine M. Lopez, but there's no dot in your name, or there is a dot where there's not supposed to be.
Or you leave off the M.
Or you leave off the M. Or instead of you live on such and such road, but they write RD with the period or without the period. I forgot which way it is. If that does not match, they throw it out for those reasons.
Right.
They're like this. They're throwing it. Those are the kind of things they're throwing these votes, these voters out for. But what I was hearing though, if you still have your ID and if you're on that list, you can still. There's a way you can still vote. You know what I'm saying? But even if because you have to prove. Bring your ID and everything to prove it.
I saw the same tweet that you saw this morning. So the I think I don't know if it was the Secretary of State or the whatever state board of elections in Atlanta issued a statement that if you show up at the poll, you'll be provided with an affidavit ballot. They have a rule there. I don't think we have in New York, which is you have to present your driver's license.
Yeah, because I lived
some kind of ID.
When I voted in the Obama elections. You had to have your state issue photo ID, driver or non-driver, but state issue photo ID.
Right.
You need that. Sean Patterson Howard said, I was in Atlanta for almost 3 weeks, and the fear tactics, shock and awe tactics is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I agree
she
with
said
Sean.
Voter suppression is real. They want to stomp our voice and vote through suppression and gerrymandering, they will stop at nothing.
Yeah, it looks bad.
Yeah.
It looks atrocious.
And I want to add that the voting policies, procedures that Republicans have established really does get us back to this question that Charles raised about the permanent capture of the Republican Party by its most conservative constituents. Because thanks to a combination of gerrymandering laws, restrictions on access to the polls, essentially the Republican Party, this is true, as we know, for all primaries, tend to be turnout is most heaviest from your true believers. And in the case of the Republicans, it's really more right-leaning, the most conservative of America's voters turn out in Republican primaries, which means that if this pattern continues and we continue to see a narrow kind of electorate, what that means is that we're certain to have continued victories in primaries for Republicans who are, all in, foursquare behind Donald Trump. And we're not going to get out of this deeper structural kind of problem we have with respect to the composition of the American electorate unless we have some changes in our voting laws. Either we're going to have to find a way to both ensure that people who are voting are American citizens and speak to, I think, the baseless fears of conservatives.
And the other thing I wanted to say about that, so I was watching Rachel Maddow Friday, I believe, and she was saying that, the government or whoever, the Homeland DHS, Homeland Security, they sent out something to all the states letting them know that there were fractions that had hacked into the local state at the Board of Education. They're voting Board of Elections. I'm sorry, and everything, and they offered their help, and this same Secretary of State who's running for governor denied them. Said, "Don't worry about it. We're good here." Then another organization who knows a little bit about hacking just wanted them to know, hey, your thing is wide open. Anybody can do it. I can see everything. Like, we mean you no harm, but I want to let you know you're in danger. Oh, no, we don't need no help. But there can be no investigation because after that, he had all those servers wiped clean. So now you can't investigate to see what actually happened in that 2016 election.
Yeah.
In the state of Georgia, which Hillary only lost by ended up losing by 6 points or something like that. It was very close. She could have almost pulled that out. So that, that's big. That's big. That's a big deal. But he was behind that, though. I just wanted to bring that up as well.
You're giving me ideas for future Red Blue Talk videos.
Actually, good.
You're giving me ideas because this concept of voter registration, I actually did one recently on how to register to vote in New York. Just a really simple thing. But the broader topics of why is it so hard to register to vote? Why do we have to have 50 states and 50 different ways of doing it? Shouldn't be like that. A lot of these issues all come back to the same central technology challenge, which is authentication. Are you who you say you are? And it's remarkable to me that in a world where we're all buying things online, I mean, not just Amazon.com, but we buy all kinds of stuff online, pay our bills online. We trust our money to the internet when it comes to conveying these transactions, right? And people have a high degree of confidence that it actually works. But when it comes to voting, we've got this paper and pen system that it seems incredibly easy to subvert. So it doesn't make sense. It's like we have this problem, we could solve it if we wanted to, but we don't seem to want to solve it. And what's the politics behind why we don't really want to solve it? Do we want to make it easier to register to vote, or don't we?
And then also, one of the things that came up that is ridiculous, now, you may be dissatisfied with the Republicans right now, but if you haven't, I think by October 12th, changed your party, you cannot change for next year's election.
Correct.
You should be able to change you had to October 12th, 2 days ago, you had to have changed your party. And if not, you will not be, if you do the paperwork now, it won't count till after next year's election. So
Wow.
you won't, yeah.
Right.
So
That's
you won't
New
be
York
able.
State.
Yeah, that's New York
State.
only
Yeah.
in New York State. That's new. But I'm like, that's ridiculous. And they were talking about it should be easier to change parties if that's like I should be able to just go from Republican to Democrat to Independent
Anytime you want.
Anytime I want. If that's my undecidedness, I have the right. I should have the right to do that.
Right. And there's a lot of things like that, AJ. I was a Democratic district leader for a bunch of years in New Rochelle and later on in New York City. And, every summer we go out and we get petitions signed for the candidates. I'm sure Lorraine knows this process. And you collect a certain number of signatures, which reflects a percentage of the registered voters in that party for that office. And it's like it's an insane process. Other states don't do it, or they do it differently. It's one of these things where it's this paper and pen system, and you have to bother people, and you have to have them sign their name, and then the opposing candidate is going to try to knock you off the petition based upon somebody having errors on the petition. And it's like it's.
And
pointless.
if you have, and at this point, if you have enough money, you can outspend your opponent until he can't fight no more. And you know what I mean? Like
that's the big question, which is
'cause
campaign finance.
that has been but I'm saying that in the fighting for some people. Some of the candidates we won't name, like in the last mayoral election, and one particular candidate barely had money to fight.
Right.
And he actually supposedly had his fight that could have knocked Richard Thomas off.
Mm-hmm.
But once he got confirmed that he was on, that was it, because he really didn't have a lot of money. So but there are people who have outspent their candidates, and their candidates can't keep fighting it, and then they just drop out. You know what I'm saying?
No
Yeah.
doubt.
One thing that I don't want to change the subject, but one thing that hasn't been talked about lately is the Mueller investigation. What do you think is going on with that?
Well, you want to speak on it?
What I think is going to happen is after this election, when the Democrats have 220-something people in the House of Representatives, then Mueller's going to wind up that investigation. He's going to make a recommendation.
If he still has a job. If he still has a job.
And buckle up.
If he still has a job.
Well, that's only a couple weeks away.
Rosenstein. You're talking about Rosenstein.
They talking about the day after he's going or whatever.
That Rosenstein story went away really quickly. Did everybody notice that?
Yes.
Because it was going on at the exact same time as the Brett Kavanaugh thing.
Right.
And then he walked out of the parking lot of the White House with the chief of staff,
shaking his hand,
shook hands, and then we didn't really hear about it too much after.
Yeah, he was on Air Force One with the president like days later.
Right.
Yeah.
Trump didn't want two stories, cannibalizing each other for attention in the news. I don't know exactly how he accomplished it, but that story got really quiet. But what I think, Lorraine, to answer your question, I think that the House of Representatives will pursue impeachment. There's a lot of different directions that could take on. But I think that given the activism on the left, the activism on the part of women's groups, the activism generally, and the vitriol and the current state of things, I think there's going to have to be some kind of impeachment.
But if he gets impeached by Congress, it still has to go through the Senate for it to even work,
yes,
right?
If he is impeached by the House of Representatives, then the
They'll take
Senate has
action.
to essentially act as a jury to see whether or not they're going to follow through, I guess.
Right, and if I
It's
recall,
it's a 2-point step. Like
there's
even if you're impeached, then you're not immediately.
still have
Then
to
you
go
got to
to the
vote.
Senate.
Then you got to be voted to be removed from office.
Right.
Because the word is that Clinton was impeached, but the second part, he was not voted to be removed from office.
Right. I
Yes.
think he was impeached.
It's a 2-part
House.
thing.
I think he was impeached in the House.
Right.
And if the Times had a big thing about how this would work, and if I remember correctly, what they said was that in 1974, I was just a kid, so I don't remember all the gory details, but I think that they got Republican senators to go along with it. Because what Nixon had done was so egregious that it was indefensible, and there were to your point,
Oh.
Lorraine, there
But
were
some-
moderate Republicans
Some of the
who
people,
said this has
you know, with
gotta
so some of the people that were around since that happened, that were involved in it, they said what Trump has done is way worse than what Nixon has done.
go. Right.
By what got him impeached, what would have gotten him impeached.
Yeah.
He you know, because he quit. He stepped down before the process actually took place. He was
Yeah.
not. He stepped down. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to remember some of the reports that I heard on some of the news coverage, and I think Senator Barry Goldwater, then of a rather very conservative, I might add, sort of persuaded the president to step down, or else he would quickly lose the support of the senators and would find himself formally convicted.
I believe that there was a decision required by the Supreme Court in Nixon's case. The court had to decide on something related to the impeachment process, and a majority of the Supreme Court justices, including some Republican justices, or justices who were appointed by Republican presidents, agreed with the majority decision. So it was like a different operating environment. And Lorraine, you mentioned something 10 minutes ago that I thought was just so key, which is you used the word moderate Republicans. That was that existed, and I think it was probably healthier for the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And what's happened is, because of all of these things that we've been talking about for the last hour, it feels to me like the center is being hollowed out.
Right.
And so what you have is, the left is pushing further to the left, the right is pushing much further to the right, and the center is hollowed out. And that's a very dangerous position to be in, because you need a center in order to get a consensus on some of these things, or else we're never going to have the legislation that we want, except for the legislation we can pass with one party.
With the majority can pass, right?
Yeah.
Louise Cherigo said, I think it was the Pentagon Papers. That anything that you were just talking about, Bob?
All of these things are central to the political battles of the 70s, and I must confess I can't sort them all out.
Okay.
So, yeah, but the Pentagon Papers was another damning blow to the President Nixon.
Please ask the guest if he believes that the Trump administration is going to sit back and accept, if the Dems win, that Trump will surrender.
Who asked that?
Louise Cherico.
Yeah, I don't.
You want to read it
Yeah,
again?
can you read that one back, AJ?
Do you believe that the Trump administration is going to sit back and accept, if the Dems win, that Trump will surrender?
No, he's going to continue to fight it.
Right. I don't think Trump and surrender are in the same sentence. So
No.
I just
It's too much at stake. They're going to continue to fight it. They'll fight it through the courts, and that's why he wanted a 5-4 majority on the Supreme Court, because that's where that case will end up.
and it was important. One of the things that was spoke about and brought out, that Kavanaugh does not believe that the president should be investigated or can be subpoenaed and all of those things like
Right.
that. So that's
But
talking about
Kavanaugh
the
can be impeached by the same.
well. I
Congress,
learned.
right?
I did. Now that I learned in this process that there is an impeachment possibility if the Democrats get in,
Yeah.
and they, let's say they open up the investigation or new evidence comes out, and then they can have impeachment proceedings against him.
Yeah.
Now that I didn't know, I just learned in this whole situation.
Yeah,
It's funny because I learned
yeah.
so many things
Yeah.
from as they play out, how they are.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Supreme Court that there was an impeachment process for Supreme Court justices.
Right. Okay.
But,
So it wasn't just me.
We
Okay.
we all discovered that in the past few weeks.
Yeah.
I myself am very, very disquieted by the prospect that an impeachment will go forward, and I think it will. And impeachment is a very, very divisive mechanism. And it's not easy for the nation to recover.
Well, that's where I wanted to go.
I agree with Bob.
Impeachment or not,
But I wanted to say the reason that it's even more is it's likely to be even more damaging to the nation because the Democratic Party is not going to get a majority of the Senate. It's very unlikely. The probability is slim to none that the Democratic Party will be able to win a majority of the Senate that would be required to not just impeach the president but remove him. And the same thing for Kavanaugh. So if you have the House of Representatives launching an impeachment hearing under the direction of the Democratic Party, it is going to stir up a tremendous amount of ill will on both sides.
Yeah.
I don't think I think the president has done things that are very wrong. It seems like impeachable offenses to me. But they're never going to be I don't think they'll be able to remove him from office because I don't think that they're going to win the Senate. And in that sense, we'll really be at an impasse, and people will only be more deeply embittered because many Republicans will say that the impeachment effort was an illegitimate attempt to overturn the results of an election that many people did not like.
Yeah, I think it's compromising either way.
Yeah,
And that's basically saying the same thing as Bob in different words. It's compromising either way because if it moves forward, we impeach. If it goes out to its logical conclusion, you end up with Trump, Pence instead of Trump.
Right.
Right? And a bunch of very angry Republicans who are still in control of the executive branch. And if it's not successful, you turned up a lot of dirt. And you exposed a lot of things that, are very negative about national politics. And even post-Watergate, it took a long time to recover. And I think the thing also is it has a lot to do with like the rule of law and people's confidence in these institutions, which is like a basic fundamental thing, right? The whole thing is glued together by laws, right? We all follow these laws because we believe that the system is basically not crooked. But if we're jackhammering away at the thing through an impeachment process, there's like a price to pay for that. People are going to lose a little bit of confidence. I think it's already happened through this Kavanaugh nomination process.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's already been a compromise to people's confidence in the rule of law as a result of that. So it's Adrian Armstrong has a comment here. You need a majority to impeach in the House of Representatives and 2/3 vote in the Senate to remove. Right,
which is
that number of 67. Everybody says, and again polls, but the polls indicate that's going to be next to impossible to get to. So we'll have a House of Representatives that's Democratic and a Senate that is Republican. And
an angry president.
And we'll have the only way to impeach will be to reach across the aisle and find bipartisan support for an impeachment.
And people hoping that we get to a point where he's just going to do something so egregious that everybody's going to be like, we got to get rid of him. I don't even think that like. The tape of him, the tape where he's admitting the Access Hollywood tape should have been a disqualifying factor, for the women's vote and for so many, but it did not prevent him from being elected.
Right.
The allegations, all the allegations that were going on and that were made known, his own allegations, that was not a disqualifying factor. He's made fun of the handicap. He's made fun of Senator McCain about I don't think of him as a hero because he got captured. I like my heroes that didn't get captured or something like that. Like,
well, when it comes down to stupidity and bigotry are not bases for impeachment.
Right.
But if that report by Bob Mueller details interference in the election by the Russians and that the President of the United States knew about it, that could be an impeachable offense.
Right, and that's the one thing that he is fighting tooth and nail.
Right.
It's going to be a hell of a fight, though. I mean, I have to say, there is the possibility that absolutely damning information is going to be revealed by Mueller when this thing is all over.
So I was.
By the time they even finish that, it'll be time for his re-election, and he's going to lose anyways.
I'm not persuaded. When you look at the pattern of recent indictments, the cooperation with the chief financial officer of the Trump organization, I forgot his name, along with Michael Cohen. I mean, they have access to all of the secrets in the inner sanctum of the Trump organization. And from what I hear, and you know, from the news reports that I read that I can take to be credible, there's a lot more. There's a lot more stuff that's going to be revealed. This is.
That's a little early, but keep going.
Yeah, I mean, what most of the public is unaware of is that strand of the Mueller investigation that has.
What video ended?
The one on live.
No, it's still going.
The one that has really homed in on a lot of financial misdealings between senior advisors with the Trump campaign and administration and international financial players, including the MBZ, the head of Saudi, the young Saudi leader, the AEU, United Arab Emirates, and a couple of other the Russians. Also, apparently there were some high-level discussions of major business deals that Mueller's team has already gathered information on. It's been covered in the newspapers, but has yet to really be heard in court.
Well, the thing I heard about Mueller, and I've been hearing from everybody, Mueller is a shrewd individual, and we don't know a tenth of what he knows and what he's found. Like, we don't, there's no, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's poker face, he's not showing his cards.
Right.
He's not, and and you're not going to know until then. Shout out to Cyrus, Imhotep, Nestor Felix, shout out to Tief Khalil, in the chat, want to check in, Glenn P. Butler, Simone Combs, Sean Barrett, there was a few other people. Monty Whitaker,
Cicely Greaves,
my homeboy from Port George County, Maryland. Who did you say? Say the name again.
Cicely Greaves.
Okay, shout out to her.
Marvin Church joined us.
Marvin Church has joined, and I didn't get a shout out for him. We said Kevin Bunch, and the last group of people, Ann McDermott. That was on here. Was that last week?
Yes,
was that last week? I'm looking to see if there's any other names I missed. I just want to jump in real quick. Another organization that does a lot for the youth is Nestor Felix.
Yes.
Newflex.
Yes.
They are another organization worthy of support and our community support. And I like my hats off to them and continued success with all the things that they do. So I just, we've been talking about all kinds of, youth organizations, and I saw her and I wanted to make sure we bigged her up.
You have an amazing audience here. You got a lot of people.
Thank you. And it's funny because these are the people that are watching on Facebook. There's a bulk of people. The station has its own internet channel, so you can go to INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. But I have no monitor of those people, just the people that are actually watching right now on the Facebook.
Right. I gave out both addresses. I did a Twitter message before I came on.
Oh, right. And you said that on your video.
Yep, and I said it on the video as well. So
what's your daughter's name?
Ella. That's Ella Stern.
Shout out to Ella, who was in the video. She was in there. She was supporting her dad in the video. Like, he said, I'm going to be on People Before Politics. She's like, yeah, watch it.
Yeah, she was pretty cool.
She's trying to help
Now,
out.
is that the one that you told me is the writer?
Yes, she is. So Ella Stern is my daughter, and she writes for a local newspaper online journal called the Pelham Examiner.
Okay.
She's the politics editor for the Pelham Examiner, and so she writes articles about different things related to elections and.
Now, did she send? Did I run something on the website or in the paper I ran? Was it one of hers? You sent me something. You sent me, and I asked, "Can I rerun it?" I think. And that's how we got on this conversation.
Yeah, it's possible that I forwarded you something that she wrote. She wrote a couple.
Ella, anytime you want to submit something to Black Westchester, you can submit it. I like your writing, and you are welcome anytime to submit anything you want to
Oh,
submit.
that's very kind of you, AJ.
Yes. And I feel like organizations like, we have to extend that to our youth and be there as a vessel. Because as I said about Atif and others, we're in our 50s. We're not, they're the face of whatever this activism or journalism or whatever this takes in the future. It's not us. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be them. So, we have to nurture them and extend,
There is no doubt. And it also goes back to something I was saying at the very beginning, which is this shortage of news on the local scene. And even, that online paper in Pelham Examiner, it's all run by students, the whole thing. There's the guy who sort of coordinates it is a professional writer. His name is Rich Zaradnik. Okay. But all of the writers, all of the editors, all the creative work that's done there, it's all done by students in Pelham. It's not a school organization. Right. It's a private organization, but they run it themselves. And they're filling a gap because LoHUD is a good newspaper, right? We like the journal news. I like the journal news. And
we do.
but I have an acquaintance, David McKay Wilson. He's a writer, very talented writer. I was talking to him a few months ago, and he said that the whole city of Yonkers has really like one dedicated reporter for LoHUD. There's like a couple 100,000 people, and there's one guy.
Garcia is out there sometimes.
I can't remember if it's Ernie, but
I know he's out there.
There
sometimes.
should be 4 or 5 just for the city of Yonkers.
There used to be,
right? You should have one for news, one for politics, one for culture, one for religion. And then, if you have a city council meeting and the city council guy is out sick or on vacation, one of the others can fill in. I'm sure there are city council meetings where there's nobody from the newspaper right now. That's a very unhealthy thing. And that's why these local outlets are filling it in.
And they're not at Mount Vernon unless it's one of them perceived all-out fights between the mayor and the city council, and they perceive that it's going to be some big, ugly. They come for that,
or it's a crime story.
But I'm saying city council.
Right.
They don't show up at our city council meetings unless they know the mayor's going to be there, and they perceive that there's going to be a big whatever, and something that they can get, and they put together.
I mean, same thing. We like FiOS 1, we like News 12, but they're spread too thin. So you're not going to get them at every city council meeting. You're not going, and that applies to all the communities. There's a bunch of small cities in Westchester and a ton of little towns and villages.
Nesta Felix said maybe I should do some culture and religion. If you're talking about writing and you want to do some writing on culture and religion, I definitely welcome that. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but if it is, Nesta, I welcome that, and we'll gladly run it. Yeah.
Well, you've been very generous in my direction, AJ, and you've republished a couple things, a couple of my videos. The thing about the water story in Mount Vernon got a lot of views after you published it on Black Westchester. So thank you for doing that, and it gets the story out there. And I tried to be fair about it, so I thought it was.
Well, it was good because I was going to write something, but you had already done it. So and you did it in a different way than I was going to do it, and it was like, why recreate the wheel? I got enough work to do. It's just easier to share. I watched it. It was good. It's easier to just share your video. You don't have to read it. You just watch it. And that was easier for me. I was like, it was a no-brainer.
Glad I could help.
There was definitely a no-brainer. Now, I don't want to have a whole conversation. We don't have time to have a whole conversation. We can do a whole show on. But I can't let you leave without at least speaking about charter schools since, I'm still trying to, and I've been doing so many other things. I want to do a show on the pros and cons of charter schools with various voices from both sides of the fence, and we've never made that happen yet. But you are here, and you are, as you said, one of the founders of Amani Charter Schools. So why charter schools? Speak about that whole thing, the belief that they take away from the public school, and just a couple of words. I mean,
Sure. I mean, I'll try to be brief about it without being overwhelming. Look, the whole idea of, and I can speak to my own direct experience with it, which is, I was on the Board of Education in Mount Vernon. Quick backstory, maybe that'll help to fill in the cracks a little bit. Now I'll address your specific question about financing and how charter schools are funded. So I was on the Board of Education in Mount Vernon And the Mount Vernon Public Schools have a lot of very serious challenges, financial challenges, social challenges, labor challenges. There's just a lot going on there. And what I discovered was that it was very difficult for the Board of Education to make progress against a lot of those challenges and to get the academic results that everybody is, coveting. So somewhere along the line, I got together with a bunch of parents, educators. We all kind of had the same basic problem in our own life, which was, I love living in Mount Vernon. I send my kids to elementary school here, but at a certain point, if the school is not rigorous and the school's not safe, I don't feel comfortable sending my kids here anymore. And that cuts across every segment of the population: black, white, poor, middle to upper class. And we began to look around. We, meaning my wife and I and a couple of other people, began to look at what was going on in charter schools. We visited some charter schools in Connecticut, in Harlem, in the Bronx, and we began to learn how that worked. And what we discovered was that these places had populations and school results that were very, very similar to Mount Vernon. And we thought, if it worked in these other places, and it seemed to be working pretty well, it could work in Mount Vernon. And so we began researching the process of how to bring a charter school to Mount Vernon. And when we started out, our objective was not to rub two sticks together and create our own charter school. Our objective was to attract one of the existing charter school operators to open up a charter school in Mount Vernon.
Real quick,
yeah.
Nestor Felix, yes, that is Charlie Stern.
This is Charlie Stern.
Yes. Go ahead.
So we reached out to the folks at KIP Academy. You probably heard of KIP.
Mm-hmm.
We reached out to the folks at Achievement First, and there's one other big one. The name escapes me right now. And the conversation went the same every single time. We know about Mount Vernon. We've seen the test scores. We understand why you think it's a good idea to put a charter school there, but we're not doing it. And why? Well, we've got 5 years of strategic plans, and we've got political support from the local mayor in Newark, which was Cory Booker at the time, in New York City, which was Mike Bloomberg at the time, in Connecticut, other folks. And we don't feel we can be successful in Mount Vernon, and if you want to start a charter school in Mount Vernon, we think it's a great idea. Do it yourself.
Oh, my.
That turns out to be a very complicated thing to do. But we spent a year and a half writing a proposal, reaching out to some very talented people who know how to do these things, forming a team, and we wrote a proposal, and that's how charters work. You write a proposal, and the state reviews it and decides whether or not to go forward.
I just want you to repeat for the audience again how much time went into the planning.
Right. So, in our case, it was an extraordinarily short time window. It was only about a year and a half to 2 years. But there are people that open charter schools that spend 5 years working on it or more.
Mm.
And what goes into that time is research, writing, figuring out a model that you think is going to work, doing a lot of community groundwork to make sure that there's actually demand for the school the way you say that there is. That's something that the state wants to see, and you got to do all that work. Now, my wife was the president of the PTA council at the time. I was on the Board of Education, so we had a pretty solid connection to the community, and we knew who to talk to, and that was what we had going for us. So we created our own little system. We created our own little charter management organization, and then we applied for the charter. The state authorized it, and in September of 2011, the doors opened up, which was
Wow.
a pretty remarkable thing. And it started with 80 children in grade 5, and it now has all 4 grades, grades 5 through 8, and about 355 children.
Now I have one more question it's from the audience, and then I want to move on to more of Mount Vernon. Why do charter schools have the right to deny any student without any requirement to disclose why? I don't know if that's true, but that's the question.
Yeah, that's a better question for my wife than me, but I'll give you the high-level answer is I don't think that's accurate. You can't deny anybody. So charter schools have no tuition, and they have no admissions requirements. Everybody, it's a public school. Everybody.
So
gets
if I
an
want my
opportunity.
child to go to the charter school, if I want my child to go to Amani next year, and that's that age, what would be the process of me entering my child in your school?
Get an application, fill it out, submit it. If we have more applications than we have seats, which we do every single year, that child's name will go into a lottery, and they will be randomly selected. If they,
Okay.
and then
Wait,
let me play out because I know there's people watching. They're going to want to hear the rest of this.
More importantly,
Yep.
your wife answered the question.
Okay.
Because always listen
Right.
to the woman.
Right.
No, she said we don't have a right. We don't deny anyone.
That's it.
She's the executive director.
Correct.
So I wanted to make sure her answer. She's listening.
Correct.
Thank you, Deborah, for your answer.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Next.
I just
And then
wanted to add
to something else.
that
Go ahead.
that's a question that the impression that Louise has is one that's shared by many, including myself, during one of the shows that we had recently, not too long ago. And I will say that the laws governing charter schools vary from state to state, and while it may not be the law under New York State charter schools that you can deny students, it's a possibility that I have a sense that it works like that in some states somewhere.
So, couple of comments. One, you're right that there are different charter laws in every state.
Right.
Not every state has a charter law. Only
Right.
38 states have charter school laws, and the balance, the other 12, do not. And they are different from state to state. But at a high level, and then I want to come back to your question about funding because I think that's another key thing. At a high level, charter schools are public schools. They are authorized by the state. They are regulated by the state. There are no admissions requirements, and there is no tuition. So if your child wants to go to a Monty Public Charter School next year, all you got to do is apply.
Now I wanted to. We have coming kind of close to the show. I know you deal with a lot of local. All politics are local, and you've covered Mount Vernon quite frequently. And I would like to move on to the state of Mount Vernon and have you speak on anything that you wanted to speak on about what's going on the local scene.
That's a very open-ended. You left a lot there.
Oh,
AJ.
before you do that, your wife said, "This is a bad rap on charters. We are about creating opportunity for the kids." Louise has a lot of other questions, and I just want to. I said the charter school thing. I know is something that we could do a whole show on,
Without a doubt.
and there's no way to answer all the questions in the time that's allowed. So I will. If you still want to have questions, I will further them to them, and then I will do
Sure.
something on Black Westchester. But I would like to create in the future another show where we just dealing with charter schools, and we can
Right.
cover everything from every aspect. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
2 hours won't be enough, but we'll do a lot more.
Maybe
than
you
we
could
do
have
maybe, yes.
somebody from the Charter School of Excellence in Yonkers too. come
Well,
out.
I want
Absolutely.
to have people pro and con from the whole charter school spectrum,
Sure.
and have a like a debate, like a conversation.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that a moderated conversation on charters would be excellent to cover everything. Talk about, financing, how they're funded, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of mythology that surrounds charter schools. It gets kind of a lightning rod issue for a lot of people. The idea, the whole mission of the school is to provide children in Mount Vernon in grades 5 through 8 with an opportunity to achieve and to go to competitive high schools and to go to college and ultimately the career of their choice. It's just trying to create opportunities for young people. That's really the only thing that's driving it.
So again, and like I said, we got like maybe a little more than 10 minutes. I know anything you want to talk about the local scene too. Just
The local scene in Mount
Yes,
Vernon.
yes.
Well, I don't know what to say exactly about the local scene, AJ. It's Mount Vernon is always like this is like, as long as I've been connected with it, it's like a little bit on fire all the time, and so I don't know what is ever going to completely bring that under control. The school board's got its issues. The city council clearly has its issues. The mayor has issues. And yet it still remains a very desirable place to live for a lot of people. It's got a geographic location that people love. It's got a housing stock that people love.
I like to go shopping.
It's got shopping. It's got houses of worship. It's got all these things. And it always seems to be just an inch away from being really great. My personal orientation on it is that it's the schools and the ability to send your kids to the regular public schools that is going to make Mount Vernon from good to great. I'm not running for anything. I'm saying objectively, I'd still be living there if the regular public schools were functioning the way they should be.
Now you said you were on the school board. What do you think some of the major concerns that we can do to make our school system better?
So academic rigor is the number one thing. You got to make it safe, and you got to make it academically rigorous. And the reason why I think that there's room for charter schools, because it answers your question, is that there have to be some profound changes to the public schools. There are significant structural problems with the way that it's funded. It's underfunded relative to neighboring communities. You talk about a topic you could talk about forever, AJ. It's just so open-ended. We're funding education through property taxes. It's a ridiculous model. I don't see it changing anytime soon. We have to insert some kind of a change in the public education process where the kids in Mount Vernon are getting what they need, the kids in the neighboring communities are getting what they need. But right now we've got these artificial boundary lines around the district. If you live in Mount Vernon, you got to go to a public school in Mount Vernon. If you live in Pelham, you go to school in Pelham. If you can afford to move to Pelham, some people might have that option, others don't. If you don't, your school choices shouldn't be compromised. That's got to change.
Now, do you think that I've seen some changes that they've made over the last, say, 2-3 years? Do you think it's moving in the right direction? Are there any positives that you have seen?
I hear positive things. I hear that they're trying to insert some marginal changes into it, but it's not moving fast enough. And if you're a parent and you got to find some place to send your kid to the 6th grade, you don't have time for a revolution. You need an option. And for some people, if there's means, the option is move. If there aren't means, but there's still some means, maybe the option is go to private school, which is unfortunately an option for way too many people in Mount Vernon, which has social implications because then the kids don't know the other kids in the neighborhood. And if you don't have means and you don't have these other options, you're probably going to be going to the local public school. And in my opinion, that can be a compromising choice.
I want to cut in real quick. I see that your wife is answering some of the questions, and I don't know how long she has, but if she has maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe some of the people that have the questions, because the questions are coming in, and maybe she can answer them in the comment section. That's if she wants. I don't want to volunteer her for that, but I see she's still actively in the conversation. So,
yeah, I see that. I'm trying to see what she responded to. It says, "How do you know?"
Right. So that's why we don't have time to talk. But everybody, there's the conversation still going on. So if she doesn't mind to answer a few of the questions,
sure.
And if she doesn't, if she doesn't have the time, she don't have the time. But
yeah. Well, I can answer that particular question that Louise Cherico is raising. So, charter schools work like this. They're open and free. You apply. If you have more applications than you have seats, we have an open lottery process. Your name goes into a tumbler, we turn the thing, you take out the names. The first 80 in the 5th grade, the first 80 names are accepted immediately. Then there's a wait list.
Thank you, Debbie. She says she doesn't mind answering questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, she doesn't.
So anybody, if you want to continue beyond this,
yeah.
If you want to continue for a few minutes to ask Deborah any questions that you have about charter schools, she's willing to answer them.
Yeah, and let me just say real quick, that process has to be clean as a whistle. I mean, this goes back to the stuff we were talking about on the national stage. It's like people have to believe that there is no nonsense with that. There's nobody who can call up and get their name moved up the list or bump me up or I'm this or I'm that or it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And if I might give a little shout out for my wife, it doesn't work because she runs the place and she's a highly ethical person, doesn't play games, and the charter school's it's got to run that way, Lorraine. It can't be any other way, because if people just have to have confidence that it's an honest and fair system.
Well,
or it doesn't work.
Like I said, I want to again thank your wife for taking the time to answering, because there are many questions we can't even get to on the air. So any that she can answer for the people, I really appreciate that. I want to thank you for coming on the show, taking your time and introducing what you do to our audience and everything. And I wanted, before we get any further, I wanted to give you an opportunity. So for people that want to see the Red Blue Talk or want to know more what you're doing, how do they reach you? How do they find the videos of the
Thank you. So Red Blue Talk is my internet channel where I talk about how politics and government impact people's lives. And you can go to redbluetalk.com, and all the information is right there. All the videos are at youtube.com/redbluetalk, and I also publish simultaneously on facebook.com/redbluetalk. Follow me on Twitter at redbluetalk. Pretty simple, and off we go.
Okay.
And also tell us again where we can find your daughter.
Ella Stern, PelhamExaminer.com. She's a writer for the local paper.
All right, absolutely. That's what's up. I'm posting the link, and I said I will do it again. Max Goldman just shared the link to your site.
Oh, great.
Mike, I'm sorry, I said Max.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because the capital. Okay,
yeah.
I saw it. It looked like an X. I'm sharing with everyone now the link for the Facebook page for the event we have coming up this Thursday is Black Westchester fundraiser. A great portion of the proceeds will go to support the soup kitchen. If you support what we do, if you believe in Black Westchester and want to continue to see us do these type of things and have these kind of shows and continue to bring you the news that we do and do what we do, please support at our fundraiser. And like I said, at least 40% of the proceeds are going to the Mount Vernon Soup Kitchen, who has had their funding cut over the last few years, and they perform a valuable service. I always say, a lot of times we're reaching for other people to come in and help our community, and we have the ability to do some things ourselves. And sometimes it's just volunteering, sometimes it's just giving a little bit of money, support in different ways. But it's easier to get help from the outside when they see a community helping itself. We can't do it all ourselves, but if you see someone helping themselves, it's much easier to put some money on top of that because you want to see that community grow.
So here's an interesting one. From time to time, the school has extra food from the lunch program, like extra fruit or extra meals, and from time to time, those end up going to that soup kitchen.
Oh, okay,
cool.
okay. Appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that.
But I'll be at Maggie Spillane's. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, I
think
thank
it's going to
you
be
for
good.
coming and your support.
I'll be there.
Yes. That's this Thursday.
Opa.
That's this Thursday.
Opa.
This Thursday, 6 to 9. Maggie Spillane. I just posted the link. I sent Caitlin to someone who can provide food for the soup kitchen.
There you go.
Thank you, Ann McDermott. And like I said, there's something we can all do, and sometimes it's just volunteering. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's small dollar donations and stuff. But we have to help ourselves before we expect other people to help us. Even the Bible says God helps them to help themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like in any scenario you look at it, those who help themselves get the help. You know what I'm saying? Those, as opposed to those always reaching out. We might not be able to do everything by ourselves, but we have to help our community. We have to do things to enrich our community, anything we can. And I hope that we do some of that, and I hope that our contribution through all of you who come out to the Soup Kitchen will help the Soup Kitchen continue to do that. And I shout out all the organizations like the Razorbacks and YCOP and New Flex and all those organizations who also do that. I would like to, if this is successful, I would like to, in the future, not next month or anything, but next year sometimes have another fundraiser and support another worthwhile organization that really needs it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe this can be a ongoing thing. This is the first time we step out and do any kind of fundraiser with our name on it. You know what I'm saying? This is definitely a little scary at times, to just be out to be the one to do the fundraiser.
Sure.
I support everybody's fundraisers, but I've never done one. So this is,
I predict it's going to be a huge success, AJ.
Well, I thank you. I thank you very much. And Dr. Bob had a few words.
I think it's important for us to put this question of civic participation in a broader historical perspective.
Okay. Brief though.
Many observers, perhaps the best known of them would be Alexis de Tocqueville, a Frenchman who came to the United States during its infancy. And one of the things that stood out to him most about what separated U.S. society from old Europe is the tendency of Americans to join voluntary associations. And there have been lots of observers who have said that this is the failure of a new generation, us, generation millennials, generation Xers, to follow up and continue to in this tradition of civic participation is one of the reasons why we're having some of the problems that we're having today. And so I think that's a reminder for everyone to join.
And I just want to say, Deborah Stern said Amani students volunteer monthly at the Soup Kitchen, and I mentioned
that's so sweet.
And I mentioned last week, and I will get with them after we do this fundraiser. There will be a Black Westchester Day. Maybe we can do it more frequently. I don't know if monthly or bi-monthly or something, where the Black Westchester supporters, the people that work with Black Westchester, come in, and we're the ones actually, serving that day. You know what I'm saying? And we do something like that. I definitely want to implement that. Putting my money where my mouth is and volunteering. I mean, telling people to volunteer and then you don't volunteer is like, So we definitely want to be more involved as well with them and other organizations in our community throughout Westchester, not just Mount Vernon. So please come out and support our fundraiser this Thursday, October 18th, 6 to 9. Maggie Spillane's, a little bit of music, come out, support, meet everybody. We thank you in advance for all that you're doing. It's $125 for a ticket, but there's a PayPal. You can pay PayPal and pre-order your ticket. Or there's people that have asked, can they just make a donation? I know one or two people said they will not be there, but they will be making a donation because they wanted to support both Black Westchester and the Soup Kitchen. So you can make a donation through PayPal. The link is on the flyer. PayPal.me/Black Westchester Mag, but it's on the flyer. I put the link to the Facebook page right there in the comments section. I just hit it there. There it goes again. So you can just click on that, and all the information's there. And you can reach out to me through that too if you have any questions. I thank everybody for coming out. I thank everybody for supporting us. Working on the November issue now. Anybody who hasn't got the October issue is still coming to your city. We're running a little slow, but we didn't forget about you. We will get them out as soon as possible. Working on November now. Anybody want to get their advertising in before the election and all that, come do that right now. Hit me at blackwestchester.com or advertise with BW. Thank you, everybody, for all that you do. Any last words, Lorraine?
Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to Lorraine.
Thank you.
So can we do a little impromptu real quick? Happy birthday, sing happy birthday. No, we're going to sing happy birthday. Everybody sing happy birthday to Lorraine real quick.
Yo, man, we can't sing, man.
Yeah,
so I can't play it.
You're going to ruin the show.
Okay. Well, everybody join me in wishing Lorraine a happy birthday, because by next Sunday her birthday will have passed.
So
happy birthday in advance.
Lorraine.
Thank you.
Happy 35th anniversary, 35th birthday.
Absolutely.
28, come on.
28,
now.
okay, 28. I was giving you.
Yo, dog, man.
No, really, it's going to be 52.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm older than you, and I'm older than you.
There you go.
Don't call me ma'am.
Technically, no.
Yeah, you're younger than me.
I was 52 in February.
You was 52 when?
In February.
Oh.
So technically, I'm the oldest one here.
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
53. I got you old.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm the oldest one on the show. How about that? No.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
so yeah.
I guess by now you could take a hunch
We
and
all
figure
grew
out
up
I'm the
together.
baby of the bunch.
Hey, AJ.
Well, you and nope, Damon's younger than you. Damon just turned 50 this year. Go ahead.
AJ, Lorraine, Dr. Bob, thank you for having me as your guest today.
Thank you for
I,
coming.
Pleasure to
I
have you,
enjoyed this
Joe.
immensely. I was looking forward to it and lived up to expectation and beyond, and
Aw.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll try to have this on the Black Westchester tonight and or tomorrow. It'll be on one of these next few days, and I'll make sure you get the link so you can share it. Thank you, everybody. See you Thursday at the fundraiser.
And thank you, everybody who's wishing me a happy birthday.
Thank you, everybody
Yeah.
who wishing Lorraine a happy birthday. You could be doing anything else, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This has been Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday, 6 to 8, giving you real talk for the community since 2014. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.